everybody. Welcome back to another React. This time we got the Critical Drinker, who is somewhat of a staple of React channels, or at least the ones that I watch. So I figure I might as well hop on that reaction bandwagon. So we're going over Expedition 33 right now, which I have a very controversial opinion about, and I'm willing to admit that it is. I think that the game is very good on most aspects, but there are two major fallbacks that I have with it, which is the story and this is a personal thing that I didn't like. So you could like this about the game, and it could be due in part to my lack of edification in turn-based RPGs, but I didn't like how a lot of the stuff was backloaded in the game, or at least I felt like it was backloaded, where a lot of the content was explorable on the map, but you weren't necessarily brought to via the main story. But that's probably a me issue, which I'm totally willing to admit that that's probably nothing that the game did wrong. But yeah, I didn't like it. But the story was very, well, it was very modern. Let's put it that way. And I don't like those types of stories. But yeah. So with that with that preamble out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into the video. Also, go like and subscribe to the Critical Drinker. I love this guy. He's great. He's exactly what you would think a Scotsman would be.
Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is very, very French. That's the
Yes.
feedback I got from basically everyone who'd played it a few months ago when
And they are very, very correct.
I was thinking about investing some of my hard-earned cash for a copy, and now that I've finally completed it, everyone else has moved on and it's time for me to offer my extremely late review. I can confidently tell you that description is both extremely reductive,
I mean, at time of recording, people still talk about it, so I don't think you're that late.
oversimplistic, slightly patronizing, but also 100% true. Expedition 33 is a game quite unlike anything I've ever played before. It's a wild ride of gorgeous, hyper-stylized environments, art design that looks like it came from the mind of a 19th century French.
Yes, the art design was amazing, and I think he's going to say French impressionist, which, let's see what.
Impressionist on.
Yep, there we go. French impressionist. I could figure that because the Impressionism movement was pretty big in France, but it did look like an Impressionist painting, which, you know, all credit to them. They had an art direction that they nailed, and I love their art direction.
A challenging but rewarding combat system.
Yep, the combat system was amazing too.
Outlandish rules that are only vaguely explained. Characters who speak in eloquent riddles.
I don't think that I don't think that that's true. I think it's very clearly explained through the story, but, well, maybe at the beginning. If he's going with just at the beginning, sure.
And never actually answer any of the burning questions the player has. And a story where I had no fucking clue what was even going on until like the final hour of the game. Like I say,
okay, I can kind of understand that, but as soon as the first act of the game concluded, I knew exactly where the game was going. Not to, of course, not to stroke my own ego, but I was calling plot beats that were going to happen in Act 2 and Act 3, and I was very much right. But then again, I've written a few critiques of, this isn't postmodern, this is post-nihilistic literature in the past, so I kind of knew where this was going.
Expedition 33 is a bit of a weird one. It's a game that plays very much by its own rules, which it mostly seems to be making up as it goes along, and it offers up a challenging experience for the player on both a gameplay and a storytelling level. And you know what? It's fucking great. This game made more of an impression on me than a dozen AAA slop titles from American studios ever could. It's a title that feels like a genuine piece of art, made by a studio with a clear creative vision they wanted to bring to life. And they did.
And that's what's going to keep it relevant for literally, like, probably decades.
And I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get around to reviewing it, but what can I say? I'm kind of retarded that way. Anyway, on with the plot.
I mean, I can also expect a bit of apprehension because it is, like you said, French.
The game takes place on the island of Lumiere, which I could best describe as an alternate fantasy version of late 19th century Paris, which seems to have become isolated from the rest of the world due to an event known as the...
I think it's got generally the same layout too, because this is the Arc de Triomphe, right? And the Eiffel Tower is at least within walking distance of that. I'm pretty sure. I've been to Paris before, by the way.
Fracture. Anyway, Lumiere is watched over by a sinister deity known as the Paintress, and once every year she'll make a giant number appear on an island off in the distance.
Yep.
An event known as the Grammage. Anyone older than that number will just kind of vanish from existence. Just go with it, okay? Naturally, the Grammage is not too popular with the people of Lumiere, especially because the number keeps getting lower with each passing year, so every once in a while they'll send expeditions over to the mainland in a desperate attempt to fight their way to the Paintress and kill the shit out of her. So far, none have ever returned. This is where you step in as Gustav, a young man whose wife vanishes in the latest Grammage and who only has a year left.
I have some very, very strong opinions about Gustav, or at least rather, some very strong opinions about how they treated Gustav.
To live himself, so he's like, fuck it, I'm in. Expedition number 33 soon turns into a disaster when the team get ambushed and most of the explorers are killed, leaving Gustav to make contact with the small group of survivors and carry on as best they can. Their mission is to explore the hostile continent, take down the surreal enemies roaming the landscape, fight their way to the Paintress, and somehow, against all the odds, take her out. But as you soon discover, all is not what it seems. Does one of your group know more about this world than they're letting on? Who is the mysterious old man who keeps trying to disrupt your mission? What's the true name?
All these questions will eventually be answered, and you can infer what the answers of them are around the middle of Act 2.
Nature of the Paintress, and what will really happen to the world if you destroy her? And will all of your teammates make it through to the end? Now,
okay, I'm going to plaster a big spoiler alert here. This is your spoiler alert. Okay. So, the reason why I did not like the conclusion of the story is because everything that you did doesn't matter. Because you are, at least within the context of the world, inside of a painting, and all of the achievements that you have as a character doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because you're not real. And even though, for you as the player, you might get something out of the experience, the story that is being told is a nihilistic story in the sense that nothing actually mattered. And I hated that. I absolutely hate that. Also, the way they treated Gustav's character frustrated me because they took a half measure on it, where Gustav basically gets killed, I believe, at the end of Act 1, or it dies at the end of Act 1. And then they immediately follow that up with giving you the exact same character in, I forget what his name is, but the next character that you get. And the reason why I have a problem with that is because if you want his death to have impact, don't give me the same tools that I just had as a player. Pull a Final Fantasy, go full ham with it, and just completely remove the character. Like, don't be a pussy. Just do it. Give me an entirely new kit to play with. Secondly, I don't like how they treated his character narratively because, what was the point? Like, he's framed kind of as the main character, and then the narrative shifts to the main character becoming Mayel. And it's like, why didn't we just make Mayel the main character at the beginning? Why are we set up with Gustav as the main character when we're just going to lose access to him and lose him? It's just like, I don't agree with that storytelling technique. I don't know. I'm more of a traditionalist, I guess, but I hated it.
I'm not going to get into spoilers.
And of course, I'm saying that I hated it within context of saying that Expedition 33 is still a good game.
For this one, because Expedition 33 is definitely a story that has to unfold in its own way and its own time.
Yes.
And as it turns out, both of which are quite unusual. I don't think I've ever gotten so close to what I thought was the end of a game and still had no answers about what was actually happening, who everyone was, and what all of this crazy shit actually meant. But then the game's got the habit of pulling the rug out from you just when you
I feel like it was pretty clearly stated.
You think you've got it figured out, completely changing your perception of what's happening and how far you still have left to go. And it offers up a few pretty important choices near the end that will radically change the ending you get.
No, they offered you the Mass Effect choice of do you want the blue ending or the red ending.
So think carefully. And I will say that by the time it was all over...
And it's up to whether or not you value the lives of an inanimate object that technically doesn't have any life, or you think that the delusions of somebody who is desperately clinging to the ghost of her dead brother is valid.
I was pretty impressed by the experience. Like, damn, man, these writers really had a mature, thoughtful
I was impressed with it too, but in the opposite direction.
They wanted to tell with this.
Actually, that's a lie. I went in thinking that it was going to be a piece of French postmodernism, or rather post-nihilism, and I was right.
Not to sound all wanky and pretentious here, but what starts out as a visually interesting but fairly straight-up story of survival, friendship, and adventure eventually gets reframed as a poignant, melancholy reflection on loss, grief, acceptance, and the impermanence of the human life.
This I can kind of agree with, although it was delivered in such a way that not to beleaguer the point, that I didn't gel with.
It's great stuff, and it's helped along by a superb cast of characters, well developed with quirky, likable personalities. And
yes, the characters were very good.
Invested in them. You feel
and
like
yes,
you
the characters did have depth. I can agree to that.
What meanings you can discover from offhand comments and what their real purpose is here. I mean, most of them tend to speak in riddles whenever they're discussing important events and avoid answering questions better than a British politician. So if you're looking for an easy to follow,
they did a pretty good job of informing the audience with clues and context clues between the lines. At least I thought they did. I mean, I was never really lost.
Narrative here, you're probably going to be frustrated. Exploration and world traversal is handled in typical RPG fashion. There's a world map that allows you to travel between specific areas, but you can still do most of the things you're able to do in the levels themselves, like get into battles and interact with the environment, so it's a little less jarring than other games of its kind. Once you enter into an environment, exploration is surprisingly simple for such a complex game. There's not much in the way of puzzles or environmental hazards to worry about. You can fall hundreds of feet without...
I do like this criticism. I think that they probably could have added a few more complex puzzles, but then again, I think it's pretty, like, the exploration was serviceable for what it was, and I don't think they really needed to do too much different.
Taking any damage, and the edges of levels are blocked by the good old invisible wall to stop you tumbling off into oblivion. Don't get me wrong, they're interesting enough to explore on a visual level. They look gorgeous, there's an insane amount of creativity on display, and plenty of secrets if you're willing to invest a bit of time looking around. It's just true. That the level design itself doesn't present much in the way of challenges. The real meat of the game is the combat.
A lot of the levels, or rather a lot of the areas that you could go that were side areas, especially at the beginning of the game after it opens up a little bit, basically boiled down to, here's room, here's mini boss, kill mini boss in room, collect item, leave. And it's like, okay, sometimes that's okay, but it started to get a little tubby on those.
System, which is a mixture of turn-based and timed QTEs that probably sounds pretty dull on paper, but works surprisingly well in practice, allowing enough time.
Well, I mean, like, proof of concept was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Like, it was really good. And this basically is kind of a similar thing, but with some extra bells and whistles, so to speak. So I would have expected it to be good.
To plan a strategy and consider your next move, but also demanding a good sense of timing and rhythm to get the most out of your attacks and block enemy counters.
And the most important thing, in my opinion, is that it actually opens up for a very, I would say, skill-expressive turn-based RPG, which is kind of difficult to pull off, but I think they pulled off very well.
And believe me, you need to get good at this stuff because some of the later battles will be over in seconds if you can't block and parry to a decent standards.
And you can also punch up if you're good enough.
I'm speaking from experience here. Naturally, you can customize the shit out of your loadout, and while the combination of Pictos, Luminos, weapons, skills, chroma abilities, and tables of stats and buffs might seem a bit overwhelming at first, it all forms a pretty comprehensive system, and once it finally clicks for you, it offers up a huge range of possibilities for how you approach battles. Different enemies have different strengths and weaknesses, and figuring out their attack patterns.
I think it was an underutilized mechanic with the shooting thing, by the way.
Patterns, their weak spots, and the various quirks of how they fight.
I understand why they used it, but a lot of the combats I just felt like I didn't need to use it.
The gorgeous environments, the sprawling
except for the combats that demanded that I use it.
The challenging but rewarding combat system, the quirky characters, and the roller coaster plotline all add up to a gaming experience that's really quite unique. Expedition 33 kept
unique is a good word for it.
Confused, intrigued, and compelled.
Like, if this were a film, I'd consider it an art house film.
For almost 30 hours, and stayed with me long after the credits rolled, which is more than I can say for most games these days. And if somehow you haven't played it already and you're in the mood for something a bit different, then take it from me, it's worth your time.
Yeah, 100%. It's a good enough game to play.
All I've got for
good
today.
game to play.
Go away now.
Okay. I will go away now.
Claire?
Yeah, so, like I said, I have very controversial opinions about Expedition 33, I know. But I'm never going to be convinced of it otherwise because, again, it's an opinion. Point is, I mean, I think this was a good video. Obviously, Critical Drinker always has great videos, like huge bangers. And yeah, I mean, I think his opinion on it is also interesting because he comes from a film perspective, right? And usually his criticisms of film are like really good. And it's interesting to approach a game's narrative in the way that a film critic would because of just the nature of the medium and, you know, how long it is. And yeah, I mean, I like it when he does gaming content, honestly, though. I definitely think that what he said is it is aggressively French. Yeah, it very much is. Anyway, if you like the video, please like and subscribe. Maybe I can give some more reactions into the future. But yeah, like and subscribe to The Critical Drinker. Give this video a like, and hopefully I'll see you in the future. All right, have a good one.